The dangerous question is not simply whether Hugh and Ulf betray Rhaenyra. Book readers already know why the phrase "two betrayers" makes people sit up a little straighter. The better question is whether the show is changing the meaning of that betrayal. In Fire and Blood, the shock is partly that dragon power turns useful man into impossible man. In the show, Tumbleton and Cat may make that betrayal feel less like greed and more like injury. That is a bigger adaptation choice than it sounds. Full Fire and Blood spoiler warning here. In the book, Hugh Hammer and Ulf White become infamous at Tumbleton because they turn their cloaks. They are remembered as the two betrayers. The horror is not only military, it is ideological. Rhaenyra gave dragons to men outside the normal royal center of power, and those men discovered that a dragon can make all social limits look negotiable. Hugh's ambition grows. Ulf's loyalty is not exactly made of Valyrian steel. The book's version is blunt. Give desperate men impossible power, and power starts asking for a crown. The show appears to be adding a more personal fuse. Decider's episode 4 preview points to Tumbleton as a civilian pressure point, and Cat, Hugh's wife, is tied to that town. That changes the emotional math. If Ormond controls Tumbleton, Hugh is not just watching a battlefield. He may be watching the place where his family can be threatened, burned, saved, or used. That does not erase ambition. It gives ambition a wound to stand behind. And that may be exactly how the show makes a future betrayal feel tragically earned instead of merely predicted. The smart version is not to make both men sympathetic in the same way. Hugh can carry the personal grievance. Ulf can carry the ugly social ambition. Episode 3 even jokes around that temptation. The idea of Ulf enjoying chambers in the High Tower is funny because it is not completely impossible to imagine him enjoying the upgrade. That split could preserve the book's cruelty while giving the show a human entry point. Hugh betrays because the Queen's war reaches his family. Ulf betrays because the dragon made him believe he should never be small again. Together, they become more dangerous than either motive alone. There is a real risk here. If every betrayal gets a sympathetic backstory, the dance can start to feel too tidy. Fire and Blood is powerful partly because it is cruel, petty, and historically messy. People do not always betray because of one clean wound. Sometimes they betray because status tastes good and loyalty gets expensive. If the show turns Hugh's future entirely into understandable family pain, it may soften the uglier point. Rhaenyra did not just create victims. She created political actors who could compare offers. That is colder and maybe more honest. So episode 4 has a very specific test. Watch whether Tumbleton is framed as only a military crisis or as Hugh's private breaking point. Watch whether Ulf is treated as comic relief or as a man quietly discovering that a dragon can rewrite his price. And watch whether Rhaenyra understands The dragon riders are not weapons she owns. They are people she has armed. If the show gets that right, the two betrayers will not feel like a spoiler arriving on schedule. They will feel like the bill coming due. If betrayal becomes understandable, does that make the show smarter, or does it make the book's cruelty weaker?